Hey everyone, it's Sleepy Reader, aka Damien. Welcome to my bipartisan comic book thoughts, comic book countdown, where I will count down the 13 new comic books I read this past week. Finally got them finished last night. It's Monday as I record. Excuse me. And big thank you to Bullseye Bob for giving me a shout out on the Comics and Coffee Monday morning show with Bueller. That excellent show those guys do. One of my favorites. Watch it every Monday. And he was kind of joking around saying my countdown was unbiased or bipartisan or not partisan. It is highly subjective, based. I'm going to rank these from number 13 all the way down to number 1, my favorite read of the week, based just on how much I enjoyed this reading. And it is sometimes a little bit like I have to be honest with myself, because sometimes I'll first put something in front of something else and say, well, let's be honest, I actually enjoyed this other thing more, but something in my brain tells me I ought to have liked X more than Y, but I really liked Y more than X in the reading this time around, even though I might guess that if I reread them I'd have a different take or something. But this is all about, it's a reading diary, so it's just being honest with myself and you, just because you're coming along for the ride, about how I felt about these books when I read them. Not how I think history will judge them or anything like that. Or whether I think you should read them or not. It's totally about me, about my reaction. And you can possibly get some use out of it or some entertainment out of it. More likely entertainment than use. And if you're a creator watching who did one of these comics, I'm sure it'll feel very biased and unfair. And I think when I'm done with the countdown, I'm going to unbox these 2 Kickstarter boxes that I just got in the mail today. I've opened them up and I have a rough idea what's inside, but I haven't taken a close look at them. And also I wanted to just show you this latest issue of the Comic Book Creator. So I guess when I get to that point, I'm going to have to move my microphone here. Sitting in this kind of sitting back kind of chair. The shirt feels tight. I'm getting fatter or the shirt is shrinking. Sitting in this chair, it's hard to position the microphone well. Hopefully the sound is okay. So, and I'm not drinking a beer, I'm drinking a fancy, expensive tea. Yerba mate beverage with hibiscus and citrus. And it's bubbly. And I spend a lot of money, I guess the microphone's way back here. I spend a lot of money on expensive drinks. I guess that's another hobby of mine. I am a drinker. I'm a fluid kind of person. So I constantly find things I like, then I get bored of them and I have to find something else, both in alcoholic and non-alcoholic formats. So that has nothing to do with my number 13 book. So my least favorite here was Beckstar. And Beckstar started off really great. I loved the first issue, and somehow I'm not finding the characters as interesting anymore. And I'm finding the art is captivating me less and less with each issue. And I don't know if the art's not improving, if it's getting sloppier or more hasty, or if it's just not to my taste, and I'm noticing it more the more issues I read, especially as I get a little lose interest in the character and the plot. So I don't think I'll be picking up Beckstar number 4. I may keep my ears open to see how people like it by the time the series ends. It definitely started with a lot of elements I liked, with this kind of gang of outer space, far future, some human, some alien, outlaws who get a hold of these MacGuffins, these bunch of semi-magical artifacts, and where that leads them in betraying each other and attacking each other and stuff. So had a lot of potential, but somehow it's just losing me, and I need to move on from comics that aren't grabbing me to others. So definitely not picking that up anymore. And in at number 12, I don't think I'll be picking up Gamma Flight anymore. I have to remember to officially remove this from my pull list because I was super excited and put it on my pull list sight unseen because it was Al Ewing continuing with some characters from the Immortal Hulk. But he has a co-writer, and I think that, I don't know, maybe Al Ewing only writes one comic I like, which is the Immortal Hulk. Or maybe it's his co-writer who makes this just not very compelling. We got a lot of fighting scenes between a lot of characters, and it just didn't grab me. The art is workmanlike, it's okay, but it doesn't make it special or make up for the writing being kind of pedestrian. I don't know. So it's just kind of It was the kind of comic book that I picked up and put down, and then when I picked it up again, I thought, have I finished reading this comic book, or is there more to come? And then I discovered, no, I hadn't finished it. I was still in the middle of the big fight, which was what most of the issue was. And Compass, issue number 2 from Image Comics, with the sort of recommendation or imprinter of Greg Rucka. I don't know. The first issue had Greg Rucka presents Compass. And I kind of liked the first issue, but I was a little uncertain whether I'd like it going forward. And I got kind of disinterested in it going forward. So there were more comics than you. Sometimes I'll have to say, all 12, 11, 13, 10 comics I read this week I liked. But this time around there were quite a number that just sort of didn't click and left me kind of bored. I do like the coloring in this book. Is it? No, it's not it's not a colorist whose name I know already. Colors by Daniel Miwa. Maybe I have seen his colors elsewhere. And the art's, perfectly fine, but the story just didn't grab me. It just, I don't know, it's a focus thing or something for me. And when I assumed I would love Grant Morrison coming back to DC, playing around with Superman and the Authority being this super influential comic from Wildstorm back in the late 90s that has such a long reach. I was kind of excited to see what Grant Morrison would do with it, and he is working with one of DC's top artists, Mikhail Janin, but there was just something kind of flat and uninteresting about this. The coloring by Jordi Belair really, on some pages it was kind of good, but on a lot of pages it's sort of, I don't know, it just didn't, the coloring actually made me less interested in the book. It wasn't like bad coloring, like the coloring I complain about where I can't see what's going on or anything. I do feel that about the cover. The coloring on the cover kind of obscures the art too much. And there were some pages actually where the art felt kind of obscured. But for the most part, it's just, I don't know. There's something, but the main fault I think is with the writing. I just somehow don't have a hook to care. I guess must be some other, it's not clear to me, some other version of the DC universe where this different version of Superman, is it in our future or just a parallel present? Because he has a different uniform, and for whatever reason the Justice League are out of the picture, so he's decided to form or reform the Authority. Yeah, this is such an example of how the coloring just sort of did not make things work. It looks pretty when you first glance at it, but when you're actually reading it, the coloring acts against you. So in this issue, we don't even have most members of the Authority. We just have Superman trying to bring Manchester Black in on his team. And I no longer can remember much about the character Manchester Black. And I may not have... Did he originally come from Wildstorm, or is he a DC character? I feel like I've read about him in during Rebirth, some other Superman comics, but I just can't remember. This is a great picture here, the final picture there. Spoilers, I guess. I spoiled the last page of the Superman Authority. I'm sorry about that. So I ranked that at number 10. So those first 4 comics, you might say, kind of just almost, well, to be honest, they bored me. They bored me. So less boring was Second Coming, Only Begotten Son. But it feels this is kind of rambling. It's like Mark Russell's throwing out a bunch of different ideas he has about ways he wants to satirize or comment on religion, and ways he wants to satirize and comment on Superman kind of superheroes. Sort of putting it together, but not really. I'm definitely going to stick with this book because there's probably 3 more issues to go, and you never know. With Mark Russell, he often really pulls things together at the end with the writer Mark Russell. So, and I'm not bored with it, but it also just lacks a certain amount of focus. So I put this at number 9. At number 8 is this Supergirl comic by Tom King and Bilquis Evely, and the colorist Matt Lopes. Really nicely colored. And I'm putting this in at number 8. And I think this was number 1, the first issue. This is issue number 2. I think I put the first issue at my number 1 on one of these past weeks. But this does not live up to what I thought I was going to get from the first issue. And it's starting to remind me, it's not as bad so far, but it's starting to remind me of Tom King's Superman Up in the Air series, where Superman in every 12-page segment was in a different situation, a different world, which should have been great, but Tom King just made it flat, to me anyway. Some people loved it, and just, to me, got Superman wrong, and got the whole idea of cosmic adventures wrong, and his grasp of the science part of science fiction in here is horrible. I think he lacks the ability to take science fiction seriously. So he talks about eastern galaxies and western galaxies, and I'm highly suspicious that by galaxies he means solar systems. He doesn't even comprehend the size of a galaxy. And what it would mean if we're on a ship that can go between galaxies. And why would Supergirl need to travel from one galaxy to another just to find a civilization with a red sun where she could have a drink on her 21st birthday? That's how she got there. So this is all part of her journey back from that red sun to find, till she gets to a zone of galaxies, I guess, that have yellow suns. So, it's got to be solar systems, not galaxies. Because conceivably there could be a part of the galaxy that has very few yellow suns, although I think that's very unlikely that you would have to travel that far if you could travel faster than light. But to have to go to a different galaxy to get red suns or yellow, it's just ridiculous. And there's a lot of, and that's just the underpinning, but there's a lot of sense of not taking things seriously, just for some kind of shtick or joke he wants to do about Supergirl. And I think I got a little tired of the narration of this girl from kind of a mannered medieval planet. It's funny at first, but the joke wears thin, and he probably could have put that narration to much better use. But again, he just wanted to use it for kind of a shtick and a joke. That saying, it was not amongst the ones that bored me. I did have fun reading it. I will keep getting it. It's just that I expected so much more from it, because I thought, wow, finally, this is Tom King going to do a straight adventure book and just show us how well he can do that, judging from the first issue. An adventure book with some characterization. But instead, it's the Tom King shtick. Which works well in some cases and belly flops totally for me in others. So I feel like this is headed towards a belly flop. Hopefully issue 3 will prove me wrong. And I would be totally nonpartisan in telling you whether it works or not for me. Okay. In at number 7 for me was Moon Knight. It was a decent introduction to the character Moon Knight. Some people loved this and made this their book of the week. A lot of people, I think. And it just didn't click as strongly with me. And I don't know if it's because I've read quite a bit of other Moon Knight or just some other reason. In places, I thought the art was really impressive. But as I went through it, there also seemed to me to be a lot of kind of photoshopped images, a lot of backgrounds that were just Photoshop, and it would throw me out. And sometimes the art was less impressive than other times, even not discounting the Photoshop stuff. But most of all, although it had a clever way with Moon Knight talking with a therapist who does kind of believe that he has these magical powers and stuff and a connection to a god, because she's a special Avengers therapist. She's still helping him deal with the idea that he might be crazy. So all of that seems like a really good vehicle. But when I sort of take in what seems to be the overall direction of the story beyond kind of the setup of talking with the therapist and giving a background on who Moon Knight is. Oh, here's some really photoshopped backgrounds that really bugged me. I guess I'm kind of defensive about it, about only sort of liking but not loving this comic, because other people loved it so much. But I'm not particularly excited about the adventure plot. There's some kind of I don't know, the vampires might have just been throwaway, and then there's some kind of guy who's another hand of Khonshu who's going to be his antagonist, apparently. We'll see. And I just wasn't that excited about it. Like the actual characterization, despite being in an interesting structure, just didn't grab me a lot. So I don't know. I may or may not pick up future issues of this Moon Knight. I'm not super excited about it, so probably not. Depends on the week. And I often pick up things after saying I won't pick them up just because I keep wanting to read more comics. In at number 6 was this Thor annual, which kind of slightly baffling to me, is part of some Infinite Destinies and has a backup story, Infinite Fury Part 5 of 8, so I didn't even read that. It's written and drawn by Aaron Cooter and a group of inkers, and colored by Chris O'Halloran. And I was super charmed by Aaron Cooter's artwork, and the coloring worked well. Although it would have been even better if it was colored. There's Aaron Cooter's artwork on the cover, colored by Martin. What's his name? Matt Wilson. Sorry, not Martin. Anyway, Matt Wilson. I would have loved to have seen this colored by Matt Wilson. But Chris O'Halloran does a decent job, if a little bit on the darker side, or the hazier side than I prefer. And there was an interesting concept about this creature that feeds on chaos, that manipulated a Thor in an alternate universe to create a Thor who would get into conflict with the Thor of our universe. But I would say that, what didn't launch this near the top 2 or 3 comics for me was the structure of the story was a little weak, and maybe it's because Aaron Cooter is a decent writer, but maybe not a super experienced writer. So there's a lot, or maybe he was just trying to fill pages. There's a lot of pages at the beginning of the story which looked pretty, but were just a lot of business that I didn't care about, that didn't suck me in and make me feel like the story was going anywhere. The story sort of suddenly started going somewhere, I don't know, 5 or 10 pages in. And when it did start going somewhere, it was a little confusing for a while till I got my bearings again and realized, someone's narrating something about another universe. But anyway, Oh, I was glad I got it. At first I was like, damn, I always get stuck with these annuals when I just want to get the regular comic and not the annual, because the annuals are a lot of time, often a waste of time, kind of filler. How a Thor annual, basically like what, 58 years into Thor's career, is annual number one. That is just ridiculous. Can't they at least keep the annuals on the old numbering? Because it's not, I don't know. Are more people going to buy it because it's annual number one than if it were annual number 38 or whatever? Just old man grumblings there. Time Before Time came in at number 5. I don't think this is ever going to live up. The rest of the issues are not going to live up to issue number 1. But, not holding that against it, it is a pretty intense crime gangs of time travel story, and I'm very interested to see what will happen next. I enjoy the kind of flat artwork. This is Chris O'Halloran inking, doing the color again, and I mostly like his coloring, but again, there's a sense of I don't know how to describe it, but there's some kind of coloring where it seems, even though it looks flat, it also feels like there's a haze over the line art, which I think is too bad. But that's my only complaint about this book. It's a fun crime book with time travel, and they're sticking with their claim that nothing can change in their world of time travel. You can't do anything that hasn't already happened. Okay, and then my top 4 here, the books I had the most fun reading, definitively very fun for me. At number 4 is Skybound X, which is an anthology book of mostly known, returning to stories of known characters. I think everything here is plus the ongoing Grimes 2000, Rick Grimes 2000, continues to be silly fun. And the same as always, it would mean more to me if I were more deeply knowledgeable about the Walking Dead world, but I can still get the fun of it. And then there was a fun Murder Falcon one-shot little story, fantastic art and colors. I guess the colorist is Spicer again. Well, it'll say at the back of it, from Daniel Warren Johnson, and all of these things are kind of by themselves fairly forgettable, fluffy, cool little one-offs, but added up together, it's like, wow, I just read 4 different fun stories in an anthology, and I love short stories and just having fun. And my favorite, I think, was this Science Dog story, so maybe I should give Science Dog a second chance. I think I tried a little Science Dog when Robert Kirkman was first putting it out, and I just didn't get excited over it. But somehow this one clicked with me. It's a bit like what's his name? Tom Tomorrow, was that it, by Alan Moore? It reminds me a bit of that, and very nice art and color too. By what is it? Corey Walker is the artist. Who's, I guess Corey Walker the colorist too, or they just didn't put a bio of the colorist. The colorist is Dave McCaig. Okay, well that's good, because sometimes I've been frustrated with Dave McCaig's coloring lately, but I definitely liked it on Science Dog. And then finally we had another assassination story, and it was probably the weakest. It was still fun to revisit a few assassination stories. The coloring was horrible. So all the other coloring in here is off. And I bought the assassination cover because that was sort of, I always buy the cover of the one that I know is the thing that I'm buying it for, sort of. I enjoyed the assassination series, and I thought it would be fun to get another assassination story. So that, even though it in the end turned out to be my least favorite, I didn't hate it, story. But I mean, what kind of coloring is that to put on a cover, and that coloring on the inside? And I have a feeling, did Erica Henderson do her own coloring? I think so. Let's see. Yeah, she must have done her own coloring. I don't know what is she doing to her own art. I guess she doesn't think about what it's going to look like in print. In at number 3, and this was a tight race. I really enjoyed Jupiter's Legacy issue number 2, Requiem. It didn't tie in completely to some of the revelations about what happened in the original Jupiter's Legacy and the part they couldn't remember. We were now exploring a little bit of those memories, and it was pretty shocking. So I assume we'll cut back to that, although there's some other stuff about stuff going on the planet Jupiter millions of years ago that may tie into it. And I never thought about where the tomb Jupiter's Legacy came from. So is it the powers literally come from some ancient race on the planet Jupiter? Now, if you take your astronomy seriously, it's hard to imagine any intelligent species living on a gas giant planet that has no solid land. There's how they portray it. Anyway, but then all the superhero shenanigans and twists were a lot of fun. And it occurred to me that, and I love the art and color by Tommy Lee Edwards. This sort of new color-based style of his is awesome. And I'm normally a person who wants the line art as the main thing, but he does it right somehow, and he's doing his own color of working with color more than line here and making it work in a comic. It does look, especially in a painted style comic, the white word balloons really look strange often on the page, though. There was that comic I read last week where, what was it called? Vinegar Teeth, where all the balloons had different colors for different characters and stuff. And I think other artists should consider that. It might be a problem here compositionally with the color interfering with all the other colors. Depends how the artist approaches it. Anyway, what I was saying is it occurred to me that there's a lot of what I liked about Mark Millar's The Ultimates, his Avengers variant from the Marvel Ultimate universe. In this, I like that. His way of thinking in his make it more realistic and more negative kind of way towards what a team of superheroes would be like. And there's a bit of the Authority in it, and a bit of the Watchmen, but maybe more Authority and more Ultimates. So I'm I haven't watched the TV show, and I haven't read I read the main Jupiter Legacy issues when they came out, but I never read the 2 backstory trades, which I own, so I should go back to those and see if they help fill in more of this. I still did have a little trouble of keeping track of all the characters, too. And really tight, again, like I said, 1, 2, and 3. At number 2, could easily have been number 1, although this is a weird and not very good cover, is The Many Deaths of Layla Starr. Number 4 by Ram V and Philippe Andrade. Excellent story. Incredible. Talk about colors. I loved the colors here. And here, Philippe Andrade is doing his own coloring. I can't quite put my finger on why these colors work so well. He's not doing, as far as I can tell, a lot of computer tricks. It's more his choices of colors and the way he works the whole page and each panel, and it's just delicious just for the colors. I'm just getting lost in looking at the colors now, but the art is very nice, and so I would never want to see Philippe Andrade not colored by himself, because I better check that he really is. Yeah, there's color assists by Inez Amaro. I assume that means she's the flatter, but who knows exactly what that means. But this has some great moments in it that are really unique, like when Layla Starr is having a conversation with the spirit of a Chinese temple, the last Chinese temple in this city in India. I forget which city they're in at the moment. And all kinds of other interesting confrontation with the man whose trail she's been dogging throughout the story, the person who is destined to create immortality and defeat death, since she was the goddess of death and got retired into the body of Layla Starr. But somehow, I don't fully understand. Someone, I guess this person, keeps bringing her back to life. She dies frequently, and he brings her back to life, but I guess a lot of time passes before she gets brought back to life, but she's still in the Layla Starr body, and it hasn't aged. So there's a lot of intriguing stuff. I'd say the one thing that confused me, so this is, I guess, a spoiler because it's from the last page of the book, although it doesn't. At the very bottom of the page, it says 28 years from the day Layla Starr was buried under a broken temple. So, spoiler, she, somewhere in this story, off panel, she dies in the temple that gets destroyed by a monsoon, and I guess is brought back to life 28 years later. And I don't understand that part, like why that happens and how is she brought back to life. And this character keeps bringing her back to life, and I guess he's one of the other gods. So I've just sort of missed that. Maybe if I went back and read all the issues again, I would understand some of the subtleties. In this issue, I really realized how important things are happening off panel sometimes. So I wonder if I've missed other stuff in earlier books, even though I've been enjoying it all along. And finally, I just got the most pleasure out of yet another issue. Nothing special in terms of Usagi Yojimbo, number 21. Usagi Yojimbo number 21 of this new volume of Color Usagi Yojimbos. I love the color, which I think is still by Hi-Fi, whoever Hi-Fi is, Hi-Fi Design. So it might be a team of colorists working on this for all I know. But it's just the right coloring, I think. A bit on the Dayglow side, but it makes me like it more. Some people might want the coloring a little more subdued, I suppose. So it has, there's something delightful about it, especially with these Dayglow coloring and his art style, and a certain innocence about the characters who are not very innocent. They kill people, they fight. This layer of innocence and this layer of knowingness about the difficulties and evils of human nature, even though it's not human nature. They're all animals. They're all anthropomorphic animals. But so it's, there's the whole 2-issue storyline was Usagi is helping this other swordsman who is a teacher at a sword fighting school deliver a sword to the uncle of the swords master who's died. But along the way we learn a lot about different approaches and attitudes about honor and what it means to have a sword fighting school and friendship and all kinds of other things during the course of this tale. Now, a lot of people thought this character is female, and I thought she was female at times and thought she wasn't female at other times. But at the end of the book, I decided, and they find out they're cousins. They never knew it, which is kind of cool. But as far as I can tell, I think Yuguchi is referred to as a he. I'm still not totally sure, but I think Yaguchi, this other honorable swords person, is a male after all. So that was my 13 books, and as I went through them, I got happier and happier as I got to those final 4 that really made me happy. But it's unusual, actually, for me to have 4 or 5 or 6 books on the list that just kind of are okay or a little boring, or I have to put them down and pick them back up again. Now, I did have a busy week and I had trouble finding time to read things. So that may have contributed to that aspect of things. So I just got in the mail today the latest issue of Comic Book Creator, which a large portion of it is devoted to Barry Smith and his recent graphic novel, what was it called? Monster, or Monsters. It was called Monsters. So there's an in-depth interview with Barry Smith, which I haven't read yet, and I've read about half of this very in-depth article, kind of giving a history both of Barry Smith and of various events leading up to the making of Monsters, and Barry Smith's relationship with the comic book industry, really, and also issues with Barry Manilow and the plagiarism on several occasions that he's been accused of and seems to be guilty of. And there's a lot of documentation here and examples, and we even get a pretty in-depth discussion of the artistic collaboration between Herb Trimpe and Barry Smith, who I did not know were best of friends. But Herb Trimpe might not have been that happy how Barry Smith kind of took over the Machine Man project, but I guess he didn't hold it against him too much. So I'm guessing Herb Trimpe was someone who just did not let himself get too stressed about things. So anyway, I'm really enjoying reading this, and I'll probably go back to reading it after shooting this video, if life allows me to. And then I got in the mail a package from Kilgore Books, who I'd forgotten several months ago, not too long ago, so they delivered pretty quickly. I kickstarted their line of books. They're a small publisher, very indie, and they were kickstarting like a whole slew of books together. And I can't remember what I paid, but it wasn't too much to get, because it always costs a lot to get these sort of almost, these kind of books that never even appear in my comic book shops, to order them through the mail. So getting them all together, assuming I end up liking them, will be a good thing. It came with this postcard. Says has a Kilgore Books logo on it. And then, let's see, the first book at the top is by Carl Christian Krumpholz, Lighthouse in the City. I like that cover. It, at the first glance, it looks like the kind of thing that might be Autobio Comics, but I don't know. Let's see, on the back it says, The Lighthouse in the City started as a daily autobiographical comic in January 2020. So it's quite recent autobiography. This volume collects all of his slice of life comics from January through March 2021. So it's very up to date. So I look forward to that. His style has a familiar look to it. There's like a few other artists I've seen, but I don't know who they are with a similar style. Maybe I've seen other stuff by Krumpholz and just have forgotten. Because I'm not someone super, I like getting these small press things, but I'm not super focused on them, and sometimes I just let it go in one ear and out the other, I'm afraid. And then there's this book, Are Comic Books Real? I like that title. Not sure I like the red nose on the character, but there you are. It says, Students covered in paint, false fire alarm, suspicious smells in the cafeteria. A new collection of comics from the trenches of teaching by award-winning cartoonist Alex Nall. So it looks like purposefully childlike looking drawings in color. Maybe a bit in the Linda Berry vein, perhaps. Not as complex as hers, but it just makes, that's the first thing that jumps out in my mind. So I'll see what this is like. I don't think I've read any Alex Nall either. And then a collection of Blammo, issues 1 through 5. Which is, I think all of Blammo is just this. I think Blammo is a self-published comic book by Ethan Van Sciver. Sorry, Noah Van Sciver, not Ethan Van. Very different people, although they're brothers. And I might have one issue of Blammo. I don't know if it's. I know I have one issue of Blammo. I don't know if it's one of these. Oh, there's a picture of Ethan, I assume. I mean Noah. Got the name Ethan stuck in my head. So this looks like a very nice volume. I have read some Ethan Van Sciver that I thought was very good, and other stuff that I didn't think it was bad, but it just wasn't for me. So anyway, I look forward to exploring this because I've been wanting to explore Noah Van Sciver more. Quater Comics, issue 6, story and art by Josh Pettinger. That's interesting. First printing August 2021, so that's in the future, right? This is July right now, 2021. At first glance, it looks also like Autobio Comics. I don't know if it will be, but I like the style. Looks fun. And then, I am so sick of books with this in their title, but we've got Go Fuck Myself, The Fuckpendium by Mike Freehite. It now seems to be a fake indicator of I'm going to shock you, or I'm going to be somehow more rebellious. And it's so unrebellious now to put that word in the title of your book. It's just a commercial move, eh? I kind of like the art in here. I like the duotone coloring. So we'll see. Huh. It actually looks like a good book. Just don't like the title. Ruining Your Cat's Life by Lauren Barnett. If I don't like this book, at least I can re-gift it to a friend who loves his cats. I bet it's another Autobio comic. It hardly looks like comics. It looks like artwork and occasional one-shot cartoons. So we'll see what that's like. But overall, from this first glance, I'm pretty happy that I backed that Kickstarter. I can't remember. Again, I can't remember what I paid. I think it might have been about $60 for all of this, or maybe more. I just can't remember. But it's good to support this kind of thing, and I think it's good for me because I don't have to go search out a whole bunch of books and try to decide what to order in that field. Now let's see. Finally, I've got a Kickstarter from Creation Inc., which I think is, I don't know if it's a company that just works with Jim Starlin or if it's Jim Starlin's company, but I know that it's a Dreadstar book. And I've been waiting a long time for this. And I backed a few other Jim Starlin projects in the past, but I'm not sure if I'm going to back more in the future for various reasons. But maybe this will change my mind. Let's see, there must be bonus things inside here. Got some prints. I may have gotten that print already from some other book, or maybe it was the cover of some other book that I backed. Various incarnations of Dreadstar in Jim Starlin's more slick, current style. Oh, there's the older style from back when he originated Dreadstar, I would say. And then prints Dreadstar drawn by other people. I'm not sure who that is. I can't read the signature. Or this. Oh, this is a Don Lim. Ron Lim, it must be. This is also Ron Lim. That's the main bad guy in Dreadstar, right? A pope of some sort. And I like this drawing, but I can't find a signature. That's kind of nice. All of them feel overcolored. Well, what are you going to do? Looks like there's the usual bookmark. Actually, it's always handy to have extra bookmarks. I don't save them. I don't know if bookmarks are collectible, and I should be saving them. And some trading cards, which I'll probably use as bookmarks. Unless I totally love them. I do have a small collection of art trading cards. So there's that. Precariously balanced here. There's a long letter that just says how great their fulfillment partner is and stuff in here. So, what did I order? What did I back? Dreadstar guidebook maybe this was like a secondary add-on thing. I don't recall wanting that particularly, but maybe I thought, well, a little more and put a little more money in Jim Starlin's pocket, I'll get this. It has a really nice feeling cover, actually. I'm not sure about, the binding actually looks pretty good. It has a price on it of $30. And then Dreadstar Returns, and I think an original graphic novel. Also $30 priced on it. Did I pay $60 for all of this? Did I pay more? And I'm wondering, did I think I had also backed a reprinting of all of the past Dreadstar? I thought that's what I was getting, or is that what I decided not to get in the end? So this will be fun, but I kind of want to do a reread of Dreadstar before I read this. Or maybe I'll just go ahead and read this and then reread Dreadstar some other time. I don't like the coloring style for the most part, but I'll probably get used to it. So that's my Kickstarter life. I'm very happy with that Kilgore Kickstarter. I'm not sure if I'm going to feel so happy about that Dreadstar Kickstarter. And especially if it's just a book I could pick up somewhere else for a discount off the cover price. So, but with that, I hope you're having a good comic book reading week. And if I get a chance, I will cover this coming Wednesday's comics before I leave on my trip to the East Coast. I'm flying out in 7 days. I'm flying out on Sunday, so we'll see if I get to that or not. And then I don't know what I will or won't do in terms of videos during that time. I'll be gone for like 11 or 12 days. And so I hope over my vacation to join in on the Sunday conversation with Rasa and Terrence and Earl Grey. Excuse me. But I missed this week, and I will miss next Sunday too, because I'll be on an airplane while they're recording. So that's kind of one of the funnest things I do every week these days. So I'm sad to miss that. But I'll be back with them eventually. So thanks, everyone, and I'll talk to you later.